So here we are inside the Mall of America. Let's take a look around and see what we can find out. I'm here there's a directory. We might use this to find out what the contents are, this map. But frankly, that's a little bit too cumbersome for me. And so I think the more likely thing is just to sort of take off and roam around. When what we see is that this mall is essentially a vast network of extended corridors. You can see that I can look in all directions and see the corridors stretching out. And positioned along these are a bunch of stores. And the stores sell clothing, that sell phones. Here's a Verizon store, all sorts of things. And the usefulness of this is the extent that these stores are selling products that I'm interested in. I think it's important to note that there are two completely different functions going on here. One, the mall is to get you to move around, to get to places. The stores themselves are wanting you to stay put, to enter, to be there as long as it's necessary for you can extract value. Unfortunately, when you're in a mall, you may stumble across something like this, which is a vast dead end. I think this is where Bloomingdale's used to be. And I used to live in Minneapolis, actually about 10 years ago. And it's actually sort of disappointing to see this closed, because Bloomingdale's was one of the few unique stores that made me feel like it was worthwhile coming to the Mall of America, because it's a little pain to have to get through the parking lots and so forth. Now you may be wondering, where in the heck am I going with this? Well, the parallel that I'm feeling in my mind is that just like this mall is a network whose main function is to provide access to the experiences in these stores, an LMS sort of does that same purpose for gaining and delivering access to e-learning and other learning resources. But the important thing to note is, just like in this mall, there are two distinct things. An LMS has a specific administrative purpose, and the training, the lessons themselves, have an educational purpose. What I find alarming is that very often I have conversations with students and people who are just getting into e-learning, and they'll express to me that their first step is that they bought an LMS. Well, that's well and good, but an LMS without thought of why you want to create change or how you're going to do that is sort of like building this ball without having any idea of what stores might be useful. And in fact, to the extent that these stores are not of use to the consumer, this experience is really irritating. And as I said, I don't find a great deal of interest here, partly because I'm no longer aware of what stores are in this mall. As I said, it was about 10 years ago, and I think there's been a lot of change. But ironically, I know that the two places that I did use are no longer here. One was a little restaurant called Minnesota Picnic that you could get cheese curds at, and the other one was a post office store that allowed you to create or to buy commemorative stamps in a way more powerful way than going to the post office. And I used to collect stamps, so it was a useful thing to me. Those stores are gone, and so the interest I have in actually interacting with this mall is quite slight. And if it's a cumbersome experience to get, say, to the, the Gap here. I don't shop at the Gap, but if I were to shop at the Gap, there are Gaps that are much easier to get to, that are in Uptown on the street, that I could get to by walking just a few yards. And so we want to worry about that when you think about those LMS decisions. I think people think that the most complicated LMS is always best. Well, really, first decide what experience do you want to have? How are your learners motivated to use content? What type of lessons are you building? And then create a network, an administrative structure that will get people there most conveniently. Again, so I don't have a great grand conclusion, except just that differentiation, I think, is a very important thing to keep in mind. That our bigger concern for performance change is much more involved in creating interactive, engaging experiences that are meaningful and memorable, rather than thinking that having some kind of elaborate and recorded and measured and judged access to pieces of content that have absolutely very little interest is going to accomplish much. So here we have it. One more view of this vast, imposing structure that may be getting us nowhere, and think how much better I would like to choose the stores and the learning experiences that really have a big difference. So thanks for being with me this time. We'll be back on the road the next time I find myself in a new place away from home, and we'll have another episode. So see you soon. Bye.